Hello, everyone. Dr. Frankie here. And this week, I am here to talk about what it means to be a bottom in sex and dating. Last week, we talked about what it means to be a top in sex and dating. And folks didn't comment as much as I would have liked and ask questions. So hopefully, this week, y'all will start asking questions and commenting. I would love to hear your thoughts. And if there's anything that I didn't cover that you want to learn more about, you have questions, or maybe something I did talk about that maybe you didn't agree with, I'd love to hear about that too. So hopefully you'll comment below and share with your friends and whoever else is interested in any of this information, because I think it's helpful. All right, here we go. What a bottom means in vanilla sex. Much like how a top in specifically queer sex is someone who takes on the role of doing or performing sexual actions to the other person, a bottom is someone who is passive in that they're on the receiving end of sex. If the sex they're having involves penetration, a bottom is generally being penetrated by a top. Of course, not all sex involves penetration, but in very broad and oversimplified terms, the top is someone who does in sex, and the bottom is someone who is done too. Sometimes calling it a more kind of passive role gives you the impression that bottoms do nothing in bed or are lazy or selfish in some way. Like the term pillow princess, right? I'm sure you all have heard that term before. Um, it's often used derisively. This shouldn't be assumed. Queer sex is more than penetration, and bottoms can often be incredibly active sex partners. The concept of being a bottom isn't about being inactive. It's about deriving pleasure from allowing someone else to lead the sex acts involved, much as a top gets off on pleasing someone else. It's especially important to remember not to conflate bottoming with selfishness or helplessness for that matter, because of the strong identity angle some people bring to the ideas of topping and bottoming. Being a bottom is about what you like in bed, not who you are as a person. Regardless of the memes, bottoms aren't selfish, powerless, or incapable. It's also helpful to remember that bottoming can be a verb in addition to bottom, the noun. It's okay to just think through what you like or feel interested in right now, rather than getting hung up on who or what you are. What a bottom means in kink. Being a bottom has a related but unique meaning in kink context for both straight and queer people. Within the power dynamic of a kink relationship, a bottom is someone who willingly gives up some control, letting the top lead the interaction with prior negotiation and enthusiastic consent. That's really important, folks. Enthusiastic consent. You want to make sure that you have that. Since kink can involve a huge range of activities and dynamics, bottoming in a kink dynamic can look like a lot of different things. It can look like being spanked, being given instructions, being tied up, having what may look like fairly vanilla penetrative sex while being reassured that you're a good girl. Psychologically and emotionally, bottoming in a kink context may also take on meaning and connotation that it doesn't in vanilla sex. Letting someone else have control may mean the bottom gets to take on a persona of being delicate, small maybe, or vulnerable. It may feel like the bottom gets to let go or release control and anxiety, even getting to feel a feeling of subspace. Crucially, unless the people involved in the kink dynamic have agreed otherwise, which does sometimes happen, of course, this role play is only for the duration of the scene, the sexual encounter. Being a bottom, even a kinky bottom, doesn't mean your partner is in charge 24/7 or that they have control over the relationship itself. Bottoms also sometimes identify as submissives or subs. This is related to being a bottom, but also has its own unique connotations. Someone involved in a dominant submission dynamic may have more investment in and get more satisfaction from the psychological elements listed that I just listed for you than the literal sex acts. To them, being a submissive is mainly about embodying their role as someone who gives away power in their dynamic, more so than the individual scenes or sexual interactions that comes out of that. Following the instructions, using honorifics or titles for their partner, rituals to honor or demonstrate loyalty and submission to them, or receiving consensual punishments if rules aren't followed, might be more of a priority over literal sex acts. Are there different types of bottoms? Absolutely. Yes, there are different types of bottoms, although it isn't necessarily or necessary to memorize a full glossary of terminology. And many people don't use them or feel invested in them. There are many subcategories that people might identify with to clarify the type of bottom they are. For instance, you may have heard the term power bottom before, something that can refer to someone who is a bottom in bed in that they want to receive, but still wants to control and direct the sex acts they experience, sometimes also called topping from the bottom. A bratty bottom might be someone who wants to be dominated and led by an experienced top, but they also get pleasure out of pushing back somewhat on that control, intentionally acting out, or breaking the rules they've set so intentionally receive punishments or go their top into earning their submission. Reading and learning more about kink and BDSM culture can help clarify some of these distinctions. How do I know if I'm a bottom? Again, it's really important to emphasize that you don't necessarily have to think of being a top or a bottom as a fixed, immutable identity that you discover about yourself or can be right or wrong about. However, if you're wondering whether bottoming is something you're interested in trying, here are some questions you might want to explore. And again, if any of you are thinking you have a question or you're disagreeing with something I'm saying, comment, please, please, please comment. When you fantasize about sex, what are you usually doing in these fantasies? Do you love fantasies, movies, romances, porn, or erotica about being won over? Or people who are naturally gruff or dominant, maybe more dominant than you? If you don't figure as the main character in your own fantasies, or you're imagining a more removed scenario, do you feel especially aroused by the person taking action or that's in control and enjoy thinking about what they might do to you? If you think about early sexual awakenings or fantasies, do you feel especially fascinated by scenes where people are being tied up, are more vulnerable, or role playing about being helpless or needing to be rescued? That's a pretty popular one. When you think back to sexual experiences you've had in real life, are there any trends or through lines between the specific parts that are most thrilling to you? Remember that these are questions that can remain open, and you can be curious and you can continue thinking about this and experimenting with it in your sex life indefinitely. You don't have to have all the answers, and how you feel now may not be how you feel later. So please comment. I will absolutely respond to your questions and your comments. I love to see them. I will also be here next week, and I look forward to seeing you all then. Take care. Bye.